And now, let's get started. Today, we have Jungle Jargon going first. So, Jungle, whenever you are ready, we will start time with your presentation. And however long this lasts, we will give the rest of the time the Raging Atheist.
Okay. Let me go ahead and do that. Okay, I can start, right? I'll just go ahead and start.
Yes, go ahead. I got the time.
Okay, geology is very important for Christians in that it is the result of the global flood, which also buries the evolutionary timeline. Any one of the following points could invalidate evolution, and every claim of evolution is based on the fossil record, for example, is always disproved. No amount of evolution.
Sorry, man. Your presentation is blocked by your own clock. Can you move your alarm to the side so people can see it better?
But it's not. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead. I'll start over.
Okay. The purpose of this discussion is to educate people where the educational system has failed. I understand that I can't possibly explain everything to everybody. And in full disclosure, I do not belong to any creationist ministry, so everything that I say, I'm saying what I believe, and if you can show me evidence, I'll be willing to change, unlike so many skeptics that I know of. We're all learning together. We have to do the best with what we have, and that includes my opponent. I will need to know, and this is important, if the Raging Atheist knows what the volume of the sedimentary layers is around the world, and I need to know if he understands that the sediment layers were deposited by water, with very few exceptions. Information in the Bible shows that there be pre-Noahic flood sediment layers. That is the biblical prediction. Lines between the sediment layers are often flat horizontal because of having been deposited by water. The creation narrative doesn't need millions of years. Geology is not a problem for the creation account of the events. What you see is exactly what happened. The facts speak for themselves. Fossils are not always buried where they originated from. Geology is a problem for evolution. You have billions of years with no corresponding accumulation of sediment layers, except for the Precambrian water-deposited sediment layers with no fossils in them, probably from before the flood. Multiple sediment layers covering areas of hundreds of miles. No known origin of any of the sediment layers, considering the volume apart from the flood. Millions of years are missing within layers because many designated periods of time are missing. Vertebrates and land animals appeared on land about the same time as sharks in the ocean. In some cases, fish appear immediately after bacteria. Shellfish appear in the Cambrian or Precambrian alongside of bacteria. There are many missing transitional life forms, not just missing links. There's thousands of entire chains missing. Fish before sharks, land animals before sharks, mammals before sharks, and birds before dinosaurs. Okay, there are many examples of overthrust and no evidence of thrust. Entire mountain ranges, plural, rearrange the geologic column. You have the Keystone Thrust, the one Castle Mountain, Bragg Creek, Coleman, Empire Mount, Lewis Mount, Valley of Fire. No slicken sides where the alleged thrust is. You have gear mesh layering. 100 years after the global flood, there was a breaking up of the continents. I have to repeat this probably. 100 years after the global flood, there was a breakup of the continents. Back currents and convection currents in the mantle pushed the continents around. Early biblical genealogies suggest that the possibility of two or more catastrophic events beside the global flood. God has confused the languages and the language by causing the earth to be divided. The mid-Atlantic ridge spread and pushed up the continental mountain chains even more so than before when the water drained off the continents. I'll explain how Noah possibly knew what the highest underwater feature was with 15 cubits below the surface of the earth. Just 1 second here. So we have the International Chronostraph chronostratigraphic chart. You probably never see this in real life. You have layers missing from the Grand Canyon. You have a geographic column instead of a geologic column. You have bacteria, land animals, and a hop, skip, and a jump from bacteria to land animals. You have the sandstone with huge boulders in. This is the lowest layer on top of the basement rock. You have fish and land animals before shark. You have the red wall limestone with nautiloids in it. It's a fine line between billions of years or millions of years and a couple of days. Okay, you have missing millions of years, hundreds of missing millions of years. Of course, this geologic column is totally irrelevant to what we see in geology. It doesn't even match up anywhere. So much so that in this graph, they got the Permian above the Triassic, but it doesn't matter. Who cares? It's meaningless, the labels. Index fossils are all over the place. This is the real set of events: is creation, the flood, post-flood, Noah, Abraham, Jesus to today. Trilobites and fish in the Cambrian. Shelled fish alongside with bacteria. Placental mammals under the iridium layer with dinosaurs. Furry critters before dinosaurs. And birds before dinosaurs. You can see them right here. Dinosaurs are in the green. You have fish in the Cambrian. You can see that here as well. As soon as fish in the Cambrian, of course, there's many other graphs that you can look at. Bipedal footprints where they were not expected to be. What else are we going to find? Of course, we're just scratching the first surface of geology. How would Noah know where the highest underwater feature is? Behemoth is unafraid. He remains secure even though the Jordan surges to his mouth. So Behemoth was an aquatic animal. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a depth of 15 cubits. Whereas 15 cubits rise, it comes right to his shoulders. So Noah knew exactly what the level was. Guess who else was aquatic? Well, that's a Spinosaurus. Even if you say to this mountain, be lifted up, thrown into the sea, it'll happen. But apparently either somebody had a lot of faith or we have entire mountain chains that rearranged the geologic column so that the Paleozoic is on top of the Mesozoic. We have huge layers of sandstone. This is the basement layer. Maybe it came from the Jersey Shore, the Carolinas or something. I don't know. It's a lot of sand. Okay, what's the volume of all the sediment layers on Earth? That's what I want to determine. Okay, and Peleg was named Peleg because the Earth was divided. Lifespan was cut in half by the global flood. It was cut in half again in the days of Peleg, and it looks like it was cut in half again later on, so that in the time of Joseph, he only lived 110 years or so. See the continents moving around. We have evidence before the flood of animals spanning the continents, and we also have evidence after the flood. We have the evidence of the leopard or the jaguar separated from the jaguar separated from the leopard, and the greater bison was separated from honey badger. This is the jaguar. This is the leopard. It's the same animal. This is the South American version of the honey badger. It looks very much the same. And we have all the rest of the animals in South America that reached South America before the continents broke apart. Lemurs to Madagascar, marsupials to Australia, and got as far as Africa. They never reached South America because they were too busy trying to build the Tower of Babel. So 100 years after, see, there's a concentration of people. Everybody's represented in the middle, pretty much, and every family, as you see. You got sedimentary rock that was folded because it was wet when the water ran off. These are crinoids. This is my fossil collection. These are pictures of ammonites in Orlando Airport. So what else are we going to find? Let's see what else we can find. Let's check this out here. We got the Hadean. This is when it was too hot to have life on Earth. And as soon as it cooled off, we got the late heavy bombardment, and voila, you got the first life. Because you probably can't possibly evolve life on Earth. You have to get life from somewhere else. So the first thing on the menu is photosynthesis. You have billions of years with no sediment deposition whatsoever, except for the pre-flood layers. You got the Paleozoic, the land animals, and of course here you get the mammals before the dinosaurs and birds before dinosaurs. So I guess that's about it. That's good enough for the presentation, I guess.
All right. Went exactly 10 minutes. So good job. Next up, we have Raging. However, he only had 1 day notice and has basically replaced someone who dropped out last minute. I can't imagine that he made a visual presentation. But everyone should thank Raging for stepping in, because this debate would not be happening if he didn't do this. So thanks, Raging. And whenever you want, man, take it away.
I can't hear.
You want me to start now, or is there an issue with JJ's ability to hear?
You sound clear. If you had a presentation and wanted to present anything, Praise will help you with that one. Or yeah, start whenever you like.
All right. Yeah. So yeah, I just found out about this yesterday, and this isn't even really my forte. I got an email last night at work. James was asking me for a favor. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. Not because I know anything about geology or evolution, but I like to argue with fundamentals. So here I am. I know Jungle Jargon asked at the beginning of that nice fancy presentation, which was predictably a bunch of creationist hogwash. Do I know anything? And the specific questions about like the layers of sediments or blah blah blah. Probably not, dude. I'm a raging atheist. I'm not a geologist. What I do know was from an entire day's worth of research from the moment I woke up until the moment we started streaming. And pretty much that whole presentation is what creationists do. So their model is to start with a conclusion, which is there was a flood, and then try to find evidence to back up that conclusion. And that usually involves pointing out weaknesses in the science or grasping onto falsities, basically. So the question that I was given by James was, does global flood geology match what is found? Not much to do with evolution. I know, creationists love to talk about evolution, but geology dismissed the global flood way before Darwin ever wrote his book, way before evolution was a thing. So that actual question, does global flood geology match what is found, is tricky and honestly requires a soft yes, but a hard no. Flood geology is twisted, designed to only point out small parts of the science and not the overall and overwhelming conclusions of the science. The geological hunt for Noah's Ark was ended by the year 1840, as within the global sciences of that time, it was acknowledged that there was never a global flood. By the mid-19th century, most Christian theologians had to abandon the idea of a global flood as well. It was a book that would revive the creationist movement, published in the 1960s by John C. Whitcomb and Henry Morris, called The Genesis Flood, that would revive what we now know as creationism. The authors admittedly start with the conclusion that Noah's flood was true and then sought out evidence to prove that conclusion. They admit this, they don't hide from it. And what they wrote was a good and devastating critique of geology in the 1950s. At the time, geologists couldn't explain many things about the features of the Earth, and the book's authors asked very good questions like, what killed the dinosaurs? How did great stacks of sedimentary rock end up Stranded on continents high above sea level, how could mountains rise? How did fossils of tropical flora end up in rocks in the poles? And their answer was a global flood, which at the time they couldn't understand plate tectonics. So creationists have had pretty much since the 1960s to perfect this model, which is basically point out the flaws in current science or tell a bunch of lies. Creationism is basically Thomas Burnett's 17th century model, which is proven wrong since the late 17th century. Now, we pretty much know, there's pretty much two major theories accepted by geologists on where the myth of Noah's flood came from. One is in 1872, George Smith translated an Assyrian flood story that bore a striking resemblance. A righteous man was warned about a flood and to take his family and livestock, put them on a boat. And he did so. They rode it out for 7 days and nights until he crashed into a mountain. He sent out 3 birds who found land where they made an offering to the gods. The other is Ryan and Pittman's Black Sea hypothesis. At the end of the last glacial period, as ice melted off the poles and sea levels rose, there was a last gasp of meltwater coming off from North America that raised sea levels just enough to decant the Mediterranean into the Black Sea almost 8,000 years ago. This is what science says. This is what the geology says. This is what the geologists say. So when it comes to the debate, evolution really doesn't even play into it because geology had disproven the global flood long before evolution was even a thing. And even early Christian natural philosophers like Origen warned of this. Origen said, "Now what man of intelligence will believe that the first, second, and third day, and the evening and the morning existed without sun and moon and stars? I do not think that anyone would doubt that these are figurative expressions which indicated certain mysteries through a semblance of history and not actual events." I'm out of breath, sorry. Whew. So, basically, in short, most of Christianity doesn't even accept this. Now, here in the United States, it's close to half, about 48% accept the creationist story. Science rejects it, geology rejects it. So by the terms of the debate, there really is no debate. And I'm done.
All right, good job, man. You went 6 minutes, so I'll just add the extra 4 minutes to Q&A later. And let's give you guys some time for answering each other's opening. So 4 or 5 minutes should probably be good enough, but I'll set the timer anyway, and let you answer the Raging Atheist opening. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
You're a little quiet, but yes.
A little light? Oh, okay. Okay, then my question was the question I asked in my the thing that I presented, my presentation. What is the volume of the sediment layers on Earth?
I have no idea.
Do you understand that they're deposited by water, the sediment layers?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I'll trust that you might be right about that.
Yeah, they're all deposited by water except for a few exceptions of ash and volcanic flow. And the rest are all deposited by water, and even the sandstone layers are deposited in water because we know by the angle of the deposition of the layer of the sediment is that it's less than 30 degrees, which means it was deposited by water, even the sand layers.
Okay.
So if it's over a mile deep, 2 miles initially before the runoff of the waters, and it's everywhere around the world over a mile deep, then that kind of indicates a global flood, wouldn't it?
No, I don't think so. The global flood has been disproven time and time again. There's not enough water on the Earth to cover Mount Everest.
Because there's everything, samples of living, everything was living at the time, in those sediments that were deposited by the global flood everywhere around the world. And it really hasn't been disproven. It's not, the flood is not a myth. It's a part of our history, known history.
Well, I mean, the debate's about geology and creationism, but more specifically, as I said, I wrinkled it up, but it's about, does creationism match what geology says? And it matches a tiny bit of what geology says, but it doesn't come to the conclusions that geology would offer you. The overwhelming consensus of the scientific community, of geologists on this planet, will tell you that you are basically going by a 17th century model that was debunked in the 17th century. Yeah, so I mean, when it comes to the science, it overwhelmingly disproves a global flood. So I mean, I don't see where you're coming at.
So you're appealing to whatever they say, you accept what they say, right?
Well, you're talking about an appeal to authority fallacy, and that's only valid if I'm appealing to an authority that doesn't have accurate information. I'm appealing to the overwhelming consensus of the geologists that are today and that have lived since the 17th century.
That's why I asked you if you knew what the volume was of the sediment layers around the world, because most geologists don't even know that.
Well, yeah, well, and I'm not a geologist, so a geologist, I'm sure, would have a better understanding of that, or whether or not it's even a valid question. But the question is, I mean, it's about, does creationism match what's shown with the science? And I'm assuming that you are yes, but your presentation doesn't match what the science says. It matches what creationist theory says.
Yeah, I'm a little bit sidetracked. The geologists themselves, I put out a question to ask the geologists, and every time I see a geologist or talk to one or chat with one, that I ask them what the volume of the sediment layers is around the world, and very few of them know what it is. And so how are they going to know what I'm talking about if they don't even know the volume of the sedimentary layers around the world that are all water deposited?
If they don't know, are you saying that you know?
Oh yeah, I had an estimation, and I did get one answer from a geologist, and it was above more than what I estimated.
So I mean, I'm a natural born skeptic. How would you come to your personal estimation of something that some of the smartest people in the world according to you, can't come to themselves?
Oh yeah. So you're making me think I'm smart now that I figured it out, that I got it pretty close to what the actual amount is, and I actually underestimated, because I didn't want to overestimate.
So so what I'm not understanding is, why would the amount of sediment even matter? I mean, what's that question is the amount of water. Is there enough water to do, what the story says? And there just isn't.
Oh yeah, you think there's not enough water, but there really isn't a lot of water. The Marianas Trench is as deep as airplanes fly high, 36,000 feet.
Well, I mean, but no, it's been scientifically proven since pretty much like the 17th. I could be wrong. It might be the 18th century, that there just isn't enough water on this planet to cover Mount Everest. It's one of the fatal flaws of creationist theory.
No, well, you realize it's not like a solid bathtub. The ocean is not solid. You realize that, right?
Well, I mean, I'm not quite getting your point. What I'm saying is there's not enough water. So, your answer honestly should be the old answer, which is, well, the water came from the deep.
The sediment,
which is thoroughly debunked.
There's no sediments in the ocean. That means that's all new igneous rock underneath in the ocean, consists of all new igneous rock that is later than what was the sediments that were deposited on land. There's no sediment layers in the ocean. All the sediment layers are on land. So that means that the ocean sank down. So when the ocean sank down, that's when there was a runoff of all the waters. That's why we have all the erosion that we see on land, including the Grand Canyon.
A runoff of all the waters. Like, what do you mean by that?
Well,
Like, are you talking like a flat
water,
Earth or what?
the water covered the highest peak by 15 cubits, and then so
And yeah, I mean,
ocean,
Snake was right. Would probably
Can I
be
speak?
better for this debate, but he's exactly right. There's tons of layers of sediment in the ocean.
Can I speak? No, there's not significant amount of sediment layers in the ocean. There's, unless it's like a continental shelf extending out from land. But when the ocean sank down, that's when the waters ran off the continents. Because the waters were 15 cubits above the highest underwater feature. And as attested to Noah, when Noah said it was 15 cubits, how did he know? Because there's something outside was showing him what the depth was, because they were all hanging out at the highest spot.
So what geological evidence of this do you have? Because you're saying something that goes completely against science. So what geological evidence do you have as according to the topic of this debate?
No, science is what you can know, and you can know that the sediments are water deposited sediments over a mile deep everywhere around the world with fossils in them that were living at the time. That's what the science is. So you look at the science and you say, hey, there was a global flood. And then you see that the oceans are not sedimentary layers. They sank down and the water ran off. And that's why we have all the erosion that we see on Earth, is because of the runoff of the waters when the sediments were still soft. Then you have all the bending, the folding of the sediment layers, because when the water sank down, that put pressure on the plates, the continental plates, and pushed up mountains and everything else.
That literally makes no sense. This is literally like the first time I'm ever hearing this. I'm not familiar with you. I've never watched any of your stuff. This literally had like, I've researched this since 8 o'clock this morning now. So for 8 hours, I've been researching this, and what you just said is, I mean, this is the first time for me.
So you're not aware of the sediment?
This is the model of creationism that I was talking about, that was set forth in the 1960s with that book. What you do is you start with the conclusion, and then you try to point out things to fit that conclusion. You don't go with the overwhelming evidence. You don't look at all the evidence. You just look at these specific things, and then you have this conclusion. What you're talking about right now, I don't even think is a real thing. I think that this is just your thing, or maybe a creationist thing. Not sure, but it doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, I'm looking at the evidence. I'm looking at what the sediment layers consist of. They're horizontal layers, one on top of the other, like pancakes, over a mile deep everywhere around the world, with things that were living at time before the global flood. I mean, that's kind of like another
huge flaw with flood geology, is like 99% of fossils are from extinct species, right? So why would God save 2 animals of every kind just for them to go extinct? And 99% of these fossils went extinct long before this flood ever would have happened. We know this through dating methods that I'm sure you wouldn't accept.
Right. Most of the animals that are extinct are marine life anyways. And animals go extinct all the time. And the sauropods didn't have to be on the ark, and the Spinosaurus didn't have to be on the ark. So, because they're both aquatic animals. So, and they go extinct all the time. And it was only land animals. It was only the air-breathing land animals through the nostril that were on the ark. There was no insects on the ark, no penguins because they're aquatic. And, there's plenty of room on the ark for all the animals.
Yeah, even dinosaurs. But do you not see how that is a major flaw in your theory? Like 99% of the fossils are from extinct species that happened well before this flood ever happened.
No, but there are, species that they thought that were extinct, but that are not extinct. They're living today. They're called living fossils because they're found way back in the layers, deep in the layers, and they're living today. Do a Google on living fossils, and you'll see a whole bunch of things that are living today.
99% of fossils are from extinct species, not living species. So that would leave a 1% for living species.
No, but there's, what you see is what happened. Everything that was living at the time was buried. And if it's not living today, it's not living today. That doesn't disprove the flood. The flood is not a myth; it's a fact.
So what you're saying is that everything that was living at the time was buried and thus created a fossil overnight, which is something that doesn't happen. And like these these dinosaurs were basically on the bottom of this now worldwide ocean.
Well, how do you know the fossil?
That creating these fossils, it doesn't make any logical sense. It's a great flaw in your creationism theology.
How do you know the fossil doesn't happen? I mean, it's buried by a mile of sediment above it, and there's a lot of heat and pressure. And many times, the fossil that I showed you of the Orlando airport, that's metamorphic rock that was heated, and it's a soft-bodied animal. And well, it's got a shell, but there's a whole bunch of soft-bodied animals that I can show you that were fossilized immediately because of the heat and the pressure. That's not complicated. It happens all the time. I mean, it doesn't happen today because there's not the same heat and pressure as there was by the global flood.
All right, so let's get back on topic, because you herded me down these creationist rabbit holes. But we're talking about geology and creationism, and basically, are they the same? Like, is there scientific evidence for creationism? Does geology support creationism? And your claim is yes, but just the facts doesn't bear that out. The geological hunt for Noah's Ark, as early as the 17th and 18th centuries, the rock records had already strongly indicated that more events shaped the world than creation or flood myths allow. In the late 18th and 19th century, the science had gotten to the point that the flood was recorded in superficial deposits that represent most recent of catastrophes. And by 1830 and 1840, the notion of a global flood was completely and thoroughly debunked by the geological sciences. This was well before evolution came into play. So, like, how can you sit here and say that creationism is in accordance with geology? Like, how can you say that this is science, that what you are offering is better than the scientific consensus that we've come to over the last 300 years?
It's because they didn't have the information that we have, and you're just holding on to a belief in evolution that you can't let go of, and it demands that you hold on to the belief.
We've had that information for thousands of years. It's the same information. It hasn't changed. They had that information. The evidence goes against it.
I just showed you a fossil that they didn't have information of until they dug it up and they put it in Orlando airport. A whole bunch of fossils that are in marble. And of course, they didn't know it was 2 miles deep everywhere around the world, or except for places that are 1 mile. It's 1 mile deep after the wash off, but initially it was about 2 miles deep initially, because that's the entire stratigraphy.
You keep going to this specific instance. It's part of the model that I described in my opening statement. And as I also described in my opening statement, for this particular instance, I know nothing about it. So you keep running off. You say you showed me this picture and your opening presentation, which was a bunch of pictures of a bunch of things that didn't make much sense. So what I have to say is, like, for that, you would have to go talk to a geologist. As I've said, I'm just a raging atheist. I'm a natural skeptic. I have to question and I have to ask for your citations. You're coming with a lot of stuff. You say you offer this picture. I don't know. What I do know is what you're offering goes against the geological record. It goes against science.
I showed you that there were
kind of that.
I showed you that there were birds before dinosaurs. So how could there be the birds before dinosaurs if they supposedly evolved from dinosaurs?
You showed us that there were birds before dinosaurs. Like, I don't even remember that part of the slide, but birds are dinosaurs.
See?
Like, I don't get what you're saying here.
About mammals before dinosaurs. What do you think about mammals before dinosaurs?
What do you mean mammals before dinosaurs? What is your proof of that? Like, we know that mammals lived with dinosaurs. We know that birds lived with dinosaurs. We know that. Like, yeah, I mean, you're not saying nothing new, but you're saying before dinosaurs, that goes against
Google it. Just Google it. You have mammals
You-
before dinosaurs. You have placental mammals living with dinosaurs. You have fish
You can
immediately
find
in
that
the
they shut
Cambrian
down a
layers with the
pterodactyl.
Cambrian explosion. You have fish swimming around with them.
You can
And
find out that they shot down a pterodactyl in the Civil War by Googling it. Go ask
you
Matt.
have you have shelled fish in the Precambrian. Animals with shells in the Precambrian before the first layer was deposited. With living with bacteria. So how's that? You have shelled fish living at the same time as the first bacteria, supposedly. And you got 4 billion years with zero sediment deposition. And then all of a sudden in the Cambrian, you have deposition. And the
I
Silurian
think you might be Googling too much.
and the Ordovician and the Permian, all of a sudden you start getting sediment deposition. Where did this sediment come from?
We're 17 minutes in. We'll go for maybe 8 more minutes and then maybe jump into a long Q&A. You guys have a lot coming in.
That sounds good. So yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of truth that's not being taught to children. They don't teach the children that the mammals came before dinosaurs. They don't teach the children that the birds became before dinosaurs. They don't teach that there was shellfish at the very bottom living with bacteria.
So
They don't teach the truth. The problem is that they don't teach science. They don't teach the truth. That's what the problem is. They're lying. They're lying to children all over the world. Kent Hovind is right. They're teaching nonsense to children all over the world.
Well, I think that you lose points anytime you say Kent Hovind is right, but I understand your creationism. Like, can you not understand how like this complete misrepresentation of the science is actually going to turn off learned people?
Hey,
people
if you're right, if you're right, you're right. There's nothing
really
good or bad about you're right. If you're right, you're right. And Kent Hovind is right. They're teaching nonsense to children around the world.
Nonsense to children.
I just gave you the examples.
You gave something.
I gave you countless repeated examples.
Are you able to tell me how creationism is substantiated by geology, or are you just going to ramble?
I just gave you what the geology is. I just told you what the geology is. It's 100 million cubic miles of water deposited sediments everywhere around the world with water, with fossils in them.
No. All right. So are you going to be able to tell me how geology backs up your claims?
I just did. I just showed you what geology is. It's shellfish with bacteria. It's fish in the Cambrian. It's birds before dinosaurs. It's everything contrary to what you're being taught in school.
Do you understand that one of the first things, and this is a quote from David Montgomery, that one of the first things that students of geology have to wrap their brains around is how unimaginably old the Earth is and how long of a time they're actually going to be looking backwards. Like, do you understand that that's one of the first things that they have to grasp their minds to? So when we're talking geology and creationism, you've talked creationism, but you haven't.
Know.
I mean, you've linked some conspiracy theories and how Kent Hovind's right about what we're teaching our children.
We know when the flood was.
No, yeah, well, one of the models says 8,000 years ago, which actually predates your creation theory.
And it doesn't matter who said what. We know that there was a flood at the time of Noah, and we know.
How do you know this?
We know we can see all the layers of sediment from geology. We can see all the sediment layers.
How do you know this? So how do you have this?
We can look at them. We can observe them. We can see them.
Most scientists, most geologists have looked at them, and they have come to a different conclusion. So what is your...
Well, they already had a different conclusion because they can't...
It's the Bible and the Bible alone, and we can move on.
They can't believe real history because the real history doesn't allow for evolution. They're not allowed to believe in the evidence.
So if you haven't noticed, you've spoken a lot about evolution, spoken about geology. We're talking about geology here, not evolution. You can stop mixing
geology. Yeah, you believe in geology, so you discount the evidence of geology. You believe in evolution, so you discount the evidence of geology.
I have not brought up my belief in evolution one time. You have brought it up several times.
It
I've kept the
doesn't matter. It's
conversation
all
to
connected.
geology,
It's
not
all
evolution.
connected. If
There's
you
different things.
think a fossil came into existence this such and such a date, that's evolution. When it was all, they were all buried at the same time. I'm trying to show you that they were all buried at the same time.
Well, and I've acknowledged that you said that, and I kind of laughed about how the dinosaurs were walking on the bottom of the ocean. But again, geology,
I
science
didn't
proves you
say
wrong.
that. I
I
didn't
said
say
that. I didn't say
like
you said
that.
it. I said that the dinosaurs were walking on the bottom of the ocean. I said that.
Misrepresenting what I said.
I am saying what I said, dude. What I said, not what you said. I was saying what I said. I mean, this is really getting aggravating.
Yeah, okay, you can get aggravated, but you're aggravated with the evidence. What the evidence shows, it shows that there were shellfish living with bacteria. It shows that fish were swimming around in the Cambrian. It shows that there was birds before dinosaurs. It shows that there were mammals before dinosaurs.
What shows this? Again, like I'm just not getting
the fossil record I just showed you.
The fossil record does not show this. The geological fossil record does not show what you're citing.
Look at it and learn it for yourself. Don't believe what they're telling you. Go look at what the evidence is.
I need to, just dismiss all of their years of training, their years of expertise, their years of actually being in the field doing it, and take the next 6 months and learn it myself. Are you serious?
It's irrelevant. Yeah. Go look at what the evidence is and ask them about it. Go ask them, how did birds get before dinosaurs?
2 minutes, guys.
How did mammals get before dinosaurs? Why is there shellfish in the Precambrian? Talk about Precambrian rabbit. There's shellfish in the Precambrian. How did that get there? They keep finding stuff all the time, and we're just scratching the surface of what's there anyway. And so it's all your speculation. All your speculation is wrong as to a timeline because they're consecutive layers, one on top of the other, like pancakes that were deposited within 6 months.
Do you understand? Okay, so we only have a couple minutes. Do you
They're
understand?
All deposited at the same time.
So I have not speculated about anything. I've just listed, the science and.
Oh, you look at the evidence. You look at what's there.
Look at the evidence and look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. Look at the evidence, and then you go
let the evidence tell you what it's saying. You don't need colored glasses. You don't need anything. Just look at the evidence.
You don't need colored glasses or grass.
You don't need to see. You don't need to put on colored glasses or anything. All you have to do is look at what's there. Look at the evidence. It's 1 mile, 2 miles deep of consecutive layers of water deposited sediments everywhere around the world, with samples of what was living at the time that everything was buried about 4,400 years ago.
There are plenty of people that do this on a daily basis for
it doesn't matter.
PhDs in it.
It doesn't matter. Tell them to come talk to me. Tell them to come talk to me. Well, tell them to come talk to me, and I'll ask the questions if you can't ask them the questions.
I've got a headache from talking to you for an hour. Because
tell them to come talk to me. They shouldn't be scared. They shouldn't be scared of me.
They keep just talking over me. I mean, seriously.
They shouldn't be scared of me. Why are they scared to come talk to me?
Go ahead, Raging. Finish up, man. Go ahead.
No, he can keep on. I mean, this is entertaining at this point. Just keep on with your jungle jargon.
Hey, you're almost out of time. Matter of fact, I'll give you guys some closing time to separate it so you guys don't talk over each other. But go ahead, Raging. Go 1 minute.
I mean, it's obviously he can't answer my question, so he has to keep dragging it back to these nonsensical points. The simple question is, how does your creationism match up with the geological sciences? And they don't. They just don't. I did a favor for a friend. I filled in for James. I basically knew nothing about this topic. Looked into it for 8 hours. Within the first 20 minutes, it was such an easy topic to see that it just doesn't match up. You can keep just interrupting me every time that I try to speak, every time that I try to answer you, and then you can just keep it's the science is there. No, you have to answer that. Since your position is yes, how does creationism mesh with the geological sciences? You point out these individual little things and some conspiracy theories, including Kent Hovind, which is fine. That's your prerogative. You have failed to answer the question. Pure and simple.
All right, Jungle. I'll give you. Let's do 3 to 4 minutes closing for each side. So go ahead, Jungle. I will time you, and then we'll jump into Q&A after. But this will be your closing up. Okay.
Okay. I think I pretty much said everything. Pretty much most of what I came to say is that if you look at the geology for what it is, it matches the biblical narrative, the biblical teaching of a global flood, 4,400 years ago. And all you have to do is look at what's in the sediment layers. Just go ahead and Google it. Look what's there. You have shellfish, and they're finding, this thing is, they all disagree because they're finding more and more things all the time. And if it wasn't for the Chinese digging up birds, they say, hey, look at this bird. The bird's in where the dinosaurs, before the dinosaurs. Look at this. If it wasn't for the Chinese finding the stuff, we can't depend on our own geologists to find stuff like that, because they'll probably put it off in a drawer somewhere in a museum somewhere. So you're not getting the truth from your educational system. Go there, go look to see what the evidence is. They got footprints human footprints in where they weren't supposed to be. So they had to invent a bipedal ape to say that the bipedal ape made it, even though apes, they got different kind of feet. And they try to put human feet on the bipedal ape, but it turns out to be an arboreal ape with curved fingers and toes. So they were wrong. They're lying to you. You have to understand, at what point don't you get that they're lying to you? You got birds before dinosaurs. You got mammals before dinosaurs. You have shellfish in the Precambrian. You got fish swimming around in the Cambrian explosion. You got fish swimming around. So they're lying to you. And this is only what happens to be buried in those layers, and it's only what happens to have been found. And they're all consecutive layers anyway, so they were all deposited at the same time within a few weeks of each other. So I don't see what the problem is. It all matches what the historical record that we have, our genealogies, everything. It all lines up perfectly, and I don't see what the problem is.
Were you finished? All right. That was 2 minutes, 20 seconds. Raging, feel free, man. You got 2 to 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he just wrapped it up. The heart of the creationist model, the heart of the creationist theory is they're lying to you. It's all a conspiracy theory. If he actually wanted to come here and talk about geology instead of evolution and try to do his Kent Hovind impression, he might have looked up J. Harlan Bretz in the 1920s, who discovered the Missoula floods. A glacier dam blocked the South Fork of the Clark River and created a glacial lake, Missoula. Then the dam failed and the water rushed out and carved the channel scablands of eastern Washington. So what that actually did was reopen the science. So they had pretty much completely dismissed not only global floods, but the fact that large floods could carve out the topography of the earth. Well, this discovery has reopened that science, and now there is a lot of debate on whether large floods did actually carve out a lot of the topography of the earth. Had he been interested in the debate, he would have actually looked up the solutions, but he wasn't. He was interested in one thing and one thing alone, which is spewing his creationism and his conspiracy theories. They came out when I tried to speak and actually address some of the things that he might have been saying. He would just talk over me. Really aggravating. You should work on that. I'm the Raging Atheist. I didn't do it to you. Those are my closing statements.
All right. We're going to jump into Q&A then. We have a ton. Thanks for all the super chats.
Yeah, we got a load of super chats. This is incredible. I mean, we'll at least have 30 of them. So if we don't get to your questions, and we apologize for that, we just have to go by priority. And there's just 2 more that just came in. So we're going to do our best to get through these.
For sure. Some are so funny. You guys are going to love it.
And yeah, you guys can respond to these, or not. So.
Man, still coming in.
Still coming.
I gotta read one before you jump into this. Go because I love it. What is it? David Dalifour, super chat. It says, Jungle Jargon, what was the best saddle for the Brontosaurus?
For a brontosaurus, I thought the brontosaurus didn't exist, but then now they say I guess it does exist. I don't know.
I did like that one. That wasn't even like a main super chat, but that one made me laugh. So praise if you want to start whenever.
Yeah, I'll start from the very top. We'll go down.
All right.
Okay, so this super chat is from Maynard Saves. Why are there no dinosaurs found in the KT layer and no humans found below it? And no human fossils found with dinosaurs? So I think that's probably directed at Jungle, if you want to respond to that.
Okay, I did show that where there was placental mammals living with dinosaurs and of course marsupial mammals, furry creatures running around before dinosaurs, and the fact that humans aren't buried with dinosaurs, maybe we haven't found them yet. That's what I'm saying. We're just scratching the surface. You know, what are they going to find next?
Very good. So here's one from Maynard. Behemoth could stand in water. Doesn't mean aquatic. If you want to respond to that, you can. Jungle.
Yeah, I ran through the verse real fast. It was the behemoth. It wasn't afraid of water because of the Jordan River. I don't know if I don't need to share it, but it says, though the river rages, behemoth is unafraid and he remains secure, though the Jordan surges to his mouth.
Very good. Get to the next one here. So this is from Dave Dalla Fior. If I said that wrong, I apologize. Jungle, lay off the lewds, dude. So you don't I think if you want to respond to that, you don't have to.
I never did lewd, so I can say that much.
Okay, and this one's from Maynard Saves. JJ, do you believe the megalodon was a herbivore before the fall of man? If so, when did animals know man fell and was okay to eat meat?
Well, everything, apparently, as far as I understand, everything was eating plants before the fall. I don't know how that all worked, but it was a different world before the fall of man. During the fall of the man, everything had to become opportunistic and get what it could while it could.
Okay, this one's from Dave Dalla Fior. How often does God Windex the firmament? It's like, I guess that's,
My kind of question.
So, that's fine. You don't have to respond to that. So here's Dave Dalla Fior again. JJ, please stop fighting mental health. Yeah, so those are just trolling questions. So you don't have to respond to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to ask, well, what's the evolutionist problem for, believing in objects made everything,
right,
including themselves?
Okay, let's see. There's just so many. I'm trying to wade through these. Let's see here. Okay, this is from Roy Lindsay. Every time I talk to a geologist, it doesn't prove my creationist claims. Therefore, it's wrong. Therefore, God. So you can respond to that if you want. Either you two, Nakasuchi, if you want to respond to that.
Hopefully I caught it. I think repeat it, because I'm not sure if I quite got the gist of it.
Every time I talk to a geologist, it doesn't prove my creationist claims. Therefore, it's wrong. Therefore, God.
Yeah, so that's what I thought it was. I think this is just the way that this comes off. So if you're going to push that the Bible is going to have better science than the actual science, you need to prove that, and you really can't. So it's the point that I was trying to make, and St. Augustine made it quite famously as well, is what you're doing is really turning off people that know better, right? So you're only going to get the gullible and the foolish with these claims. You're turning off the knowledgeable and the learned ones.
Very good. This is from Dave Dolafiore. The sediment layers are between JJ's ears. So there's you're just getting trolled here, Jungle. You can respond to that if you want.
The the truth is often stranger than fiction in response to the previous question too.
Yeah, so here's another one from Dave Dolafiore again. JJ, what kind are you?
I'm of the humankind. I'm a copy of a copy of a copy of my father's. It goes back through Scotland. It goes back through the Vikings. It goes back through thousands and thousands of people, all the way back to Noah, through thousands of people that we all know in history.
Very good. Here's from Maynard Saves. JJ, are you Nephilim kind or humankind? So you're getting here with these kinds, these questions here.
I'm the humankind and no film kind.
Good answer. So here's Snake was right. JJ, whatever river deltas sedimenting. What? Okay, here. What are the river deltas sedimenting into the ocean?
They have a little bit of sedimentation into the ocean, right? But it doesn't account for the runoff of all the sediments on land.
Gotcha. So here's from Roy Lindsay. JJ, what should we believe about Noah? I mean, why should we believe Noah?
Well, it's just the historical record, and it's the only record that we have. There's like different books besides the Bible that also confirm the same events.
Gotcha. So here's Maynard Saves. JJ, can I get some of that weed you're smoking? You don't have to respond to that.
I don't do weed for,
I do.
You can respond to that, Nakasuchi. I bet you'd be smoking up there.
Oh yeah, I just finished.
Yeah, I don't do weed. I don't believe in doing weed either.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's a good thing, by the way.
Well, you don't do it. Okay, I mean, if you do it, you might go to jail.
So this one's from Maynard Saves. It's way better than mine. I stand with Nakasuchi. So you got a fan there, Nakasuchi.
Yeah, Maynard's a long time supporter. What up, Maynard?
This is from Dave Delafiore. We need Jesus to be saved from whom? So I guess that's directed at you, Jungle, if you want to respond to that.
Yeah, we need our maker to remake us again because he's the only one who can. Nobody else can. He can cover for our sins himself and remaking us again because all of our sins are on and against him anyway to begin with.
Very good. So this is from Dave Delafiore again, or Fiore. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Keep JJ on the line. Help is on the way. So you can respond to that if you want.
I appreciate that. I resemble that remark.
So here's Maynard Saves. Typical creationists try to back to evolution. So you can respond to that if you want.
Typical creationist, what? Try to back evolution?
Trying to go back to evolution. So I guess you were trying to try to argue for,
trying to change the subject into evolution. Yeah, well, it's all tied together in geology. The reason why they don't accept the global flood is because they believe in evolution. That's the reason why they don't accept it, because it doesn't allow for it buries evolution, literally.
Well, I think I thoroughly pointed out that geology had actually denied the global flood before evolution was ever a thing.
Very good. So this is from Dave Delafiore. He says birds are dinosaurs. You can respond to that, Jungle, and you can also respond to that, Nakasuchi, if you want.
Yeah, birds are before dinosaurs, so they didn't come from dinosaurs.
Well, I think that there's some quite a bit of evolutionary evidence that would indicate that the birds we have today are the descendants of dinosaurs. I think we have plenty of evidence and fossil records to show that they were around with the dinosaurs.
But you would have to prove that the dinosaurs existed before birds, though, and the evidence is that the birds existed before dinosaurs.
No, it's not. That's your I mean, that's
I mean, if
that's
you
your
want to go by the
that's your
fossil,
thing, dog. We'll let you have that. We'll let you have that because science
if you
doesn't say
want to
that.
go by the fossil record, that's what it shows.
Well,
So the
that's pretty
next
much
three
good.
are from Dave. He's just sending them in, man. He's just really sending them in. So it doesn't matter who said what. So that's what he was saying. You can respond to that, JJ, if you want.
It doesn't matter who said what. Just look at the evidence and see what the evidence is.
And here's what he says. I'm proud to come from Iraq. So that's if you, you can respond to that, Nakasuchi, if you want.
I'm quite proud to come from Pond Scum myself.
And
Imagination.
so here's another
Yeah.
one.
That was one of my better moments of that debate. Thank you for bringing it up.
Are clams found on a flat Earth?
I don't know about a flat Earth.
I'm glad you clarified because I had a moment where I was a bit worried about you.
Well, how can there be a global flood everywhere around the world on a flat Earth?
I'm sorry, I'm busy laughing. We can
Yeah,
continue.
these are. So Snake was right. So JJ, there are sediments in the ocean. Also, JJ, explain how marine sediments are on Mount Everest.
Yeah, the sediments in the ocean aren't even comparable to the sediments on land, and the sediments on Mount Everest are because they were pushed up after the global flood when India ran into Asia or whatever.
Gotcha. And here's Maynard Saves. JJ, any geological citations you want to add?
Geological citations?
Yeah.
Any more?
Any. He says, JJ, any geological citations you want to add?
Any.
I mean, I added everything I was talking about was about the geological evidence of what we find.
Gotcha. So here's Sigi Fredo Sarabia. How was sand made in the desert, and how long to break it down?
It doesn't matter. Apparently, there was sand, and sand was made obviously by the global flood because the first layer of sediment in the Grand Canyon is a Tapete sandstone, and it's got huge boulders in it as well. And so the sand obviously came from somewhere, but of course you can tell by the way it's deposited whether it was deposited by water or whether it was deposited in air on land. And the evidence shows that it's deposited by water because the angle of the deposition is less than 30 degrees. If it was like 34 degrees, it would have been on land, but it's less than 30.
Very good. So this is from Snake. JJ, name the pre-dino bird and mammal fossils, please.
The pre-dino bird and mammal.
Yeah.
I don't know what the names are. I just see that they exist before. You got furry critters or marsupials running around before dinosaurs, and you got placental mammals at the same time as dinosaurs.
Wait. You said that you came to these conclusions yourself. Like you
No,
know more than all the geologists do. Like, how do you not know the names?
No, that's what the evidence shows. That's what the evidence shows.
I mean, if you study the evidence, wouldn't you know the names?
No, I don't know the name.
Well, then
I would have to. They can name them anything they want. They're just furry critters and placental mammals. Plural.
No, so yeah, you didn't study evidence. We can
Plural.
So this is from Matt Bond. He says, "Go talk to Jungle," so you can respond to that if you want.
Matt Bond.
Yeah, it says go talk to Jungle. So I don't know what that means. Maybe
If he's a scientist, yeah, he can talk to me.
So this is from Dave Dalafiore. JJ, you are wrong. Ask any 5-year-old. So it's like we're trolling. If you want to respond to that.
Well, I'm pretty smart for a 5-year-old, then I guess. I mean, you guys make me think I'm smart anyway, especially the scientists. The scientists make me think I'm smart.
And this is from Dave Dalafiore again. JJ, you carbon date freshly killed seals too? Do you carbon date freshly killed seals?
No, because apparently it skews the date if you take marine life from Antarctica.
And this is from Dave again. I almost missed Matt Powell, so you can respond to that. Nakasuchi, I knew you wanted to say something about that.
I've talked to him too much. It's sickening. I might have got an email today. Like he's obsessed with me.
Oh, here's Dave Dolphior again. I just threw up in my mouth, and you can respond to that if you want.
I did a little bit, a couple times.
The facts are what they are.
And this is from Sigifredo Sarabia. If the earth was made in 7 days, why doesn't my garden too?
I don't want to advertise for fertilized soil.
Yeah, I mean, good. So this is the next question. Dave Delafiore, why worship a God that needs a rest after 6 days?
He gave us an example. I mean, after all, he took a lot of power to make the entire universe.
Very good. This is from Lochovian D. Please ask JJ how the igneous layers got between the sedimentary layers.
The igneous layers are pushing up all over the place, and if it's volcanic rock, then it melts its way up through. Great. But the igneous rock does push itself up through the sediment layers in the Rocky Mountains and some other places.
Gotcha. This is from Sigifredo Sarabia. Rage, why is it so many cultures have a global flood?
Well, I mean, throughout history, we've had floods in areas of the world. The geology actually points that out. I spoke with David Montgomery earlier. David Montgomery just discovered topography formed in the 8th century, 80, that corroborates the flood story of Padma Simbhata, the second historical Buddha. The flood story there was he fought the demon of the lake and drained the lake. So because David Montgomery made this discovery of this local flood, does that prove the Buddha?
Very good. This is from Dave Delafiore. Brian Stevens rocks. So I guess that's for Brian Stevens in the chat. Let's see when I add this one. So this is from Dave Delafiore again. Wow. JJ is a Ken Hovind. Is Ken Hovind a doctor or not?
Do I think he's a doctor? I think he's pretty intelligent, and there's a lot you can learn from him. And he might be the standard for what a doctor should be.
Did he get his PhD in prison?
No, he was a doctor before he went to prison.
I mean, has he ever gotten his PhD? I think that's the question. Did he get a PhD?
I don't know his personal life or anything, but I know that he understands what the issues are.
Well, so if you call yourself a doctor, that means you have a PhD. So is he lying when he calls himself a doctor?
I don't see why he can't call himself a doctor.
Well, I mean, it's misrepresenting the truth, isn't it? So it would be
no, because if he understands, how the sediment layers got there and everything, he understands that he understands more than most people. So yeah, he deserves his doctorship.
Well, I mean, there's a difference though. Like, so I, I call myself an atheist. I don't call myself Dr. Atheist because I'm not a PhD.
You can call yourself an object credit giver, which is not very smart.
Semantics, whatever. We can move on.
So here's some Dave Delafiore again. Brian Stevens rocks. So Brian Stevens is getting a lot of attention out there.
And I could tell the scientists too, if they give all the credit to rocks, they're not very smart either, so they can't call themselves doctors either.
Very good. Now we're getting into the questions. We'll try to get as many questions as we can. Actually, we have one more super chat. This is from Trist. JJ, your Bible says flat Earth over 300 verses. GG.
No, I never read flat Earth in the Bible. Never understood flat Earth from the Bible either.
Very good. So this is from One Way. Jungle Jargon. Do we have any seven-headed fossils of dinosaurs like the seven-headed Leviathan in the Bible?
No, I'm not aware of any. No.
Okay, this is from Brian Stevens. What geologist's name gave JJ an answer, and what was it number? So he's asking for the name and number.
Name and number of what?
What geologist gave JJ an answer, and what was it? The name and number he's asking for.
He wants me to identify the geologist that gave me the number.
Yeah, the name and number.
Well, I don't even know. I was in the chat and I didn't even know who he was, but he said it was 134 million cubic miles.
Okay.
No, like literally, somebody said something in a chat, and that's your evidence?
Yeah, that's my evidence.
Holy shit! Oh, I'm sorry. Wow.
Because I was talking to him for a while, and I could see he was a very informed, intelligent person, geologist, and he understood what the issues were, and he knew what the amount was, and he told me. He says, no, it's 134 million cubic miles.
This has been a beautiful thing.
Gotcha. So this is from Korag Nightwolf. For JJ, do people worship false gods? If they do, how do you know you're not one of them?
Do people worship false gods all the time? Every object credit giving person is worshiping a false god. Everybody that believes in evolution is worshiping a false, giving glory to mindless matter.
Gotcha. And this is from Dave Dalafiore. Note to self, don't homeschool kids. So you can respond to that.
Dinner's going to have to be spaghetti.
I wasn't homeschooled. I was private schooled.
Very good. So this is from Brian Stevens. He put source some dude in a chat. So, I guess you can respond to that if you want.
Well, I mean, if anybody can prove otherwise, help yourself.
And Dave just sent a super chat. Is this a peer-reviewed chat?
And this is the best information we can find.
God. Oh, God.
Okay, so this is from another super chat. This came in from Intellectual Iconoclasm. I'm starting to think this is a Poe.
What's a Poe?
All right. So it's something. It's somebody that pretends to be something that they're not. So I haven't done it in a while. I used to do this Earl thing, and I'm pretending to be a evangelical Southern creationist, and it's funny. It's fun, and that's pretty.
Okay.
They're saying it's not real.
Yeah, I don't pretend to be anything. I'm Jungle Jargon.
I think it's a pejorative, yeah. So here's from Monk Mayfair. I'd like to ask what Jungle Jargon sources are for all this.
Oh, I've got 60 years of learning. 61 years of learning.
Very good. So I guess intellectual iconoclasm. Does this guy know that we've documented strata all the way to the bottom of the Marianas Trench?
Marianas Trench.
Oh yeah, Marianas Trench.
He documented what all the way down?
So he's asking, do you know that we've documented strata all the way to the bottom of the Marianas Trench?
Strata? It's igneous rock down there. It's igneous rock all on the ocean bottom floor. Mostly, it's not comparable. Of course, there is maybe a thin layer of sediment or a couple layers, but it's not comparable to what we find on land, which is 2 miles thick in places.
Gotcha. So this is from another super chat from David Dalafiore. Impossible. No one gets that dumb in 61 years. So you can just, he's trying to get at you here. If you can respond to that if you want.
Oh, I don't know. I enjoy life.
Dave Langer, he says, Ask JJ what his sources are again, so I keep people asking about your sources.
It's just the basic when you Google things, you can get all kinds of charts and everything of when appeared when, and of course they all disagree, but they keep finding new things, so they keep revising it.
Okay. This one is from Evolution to Zombie Science for Raging Atheists. How many flood legends are around the world? You sound like you know a thing or two about your raging profanity. Oh,
Oh, it's I take that as a compliment. My profanity is my professing against an unrighteous and douchebag of a god. So how do I literally at the beginning of this debate and throughout the entire debate told you guys in the audience, and I was very apparent with it, that I have never looked at this information before. Everything I presented to you was very easy to find. I did it within a day. Very easy, out there, accessible. So I mean, if you're interested, and I would say Google it, but just maybe stay away from some of the sites our friend here has maybe used. Start at the top of the page, not at the 100th page, maybe.
I just looked at anything and everything.
so this is from Dave Dolafior again. JJ, donate this to Patriot University.
Patriot?
Yeah, so it's
That's
We've,
not geology.
We've been going for about 26 minutes. We'll do a few more if you still have them, if you want.
yeah. I have a few, but here's another super chat from Nate Brody. JJ, prove to me you are not a brain in a vat.
Okay. The evidence doesn't show that I'm a brain in the vat.
Well, I mean,
And
the
of course,
evidence.
everything makes sense. Everything is logical. Everything's rational, reasonable, and it makes sense that the absolute truth is that only your maker can remake you again. Nobody else can.
Very good. So I'm going to try to get to one or two more questions. This is from Monk Mayfair. Debate 61 years of experience is not a source, so you can respond to that if you want. Yeah, okay. So I guess that'll be. I think that's all our questions we have. So you want to end this, Raw, or?
Oh, yeah, sure. All right, then. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for your questions and especially your super chats. That was greatly appreciated. Another one even just came in. We'll get to that at the very end then. If you enjoyed these debates and actually want to debate yourself, let everyone know in the chat down below after we make this live, and James will get a hold of you and set it up. And if you want to leave your comments about either of these debaters, again, you can find their channels under Show More when this video is done and it's posted. And I personally wanted to thank the Raging Atheist for stepping in last minute for this debate and keeping the show going for everyone, even on a topic that he really has never even bothered with. So round of applause for that. And I wanted to thanks everybody again for watching. And again, praise if you wanted to read that last super chat off. We're done.
Yeah, this is from Dave Delafiore again. JJ, put this towards buying a vat. So yeah, you can go with that, whatever you want to do with that.
Yeah, I read through the information so fast that on the in the beginning of this video, so I'm going to redo it and I'm going to take my time and explain everything on my channel.
Excellent. Well, I think that's going to end it tonight. Appreciate everyone, all the super chats tonight, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again.